Good morning. Alrighty. So just getting things started here as usual, but happy Friday, Cool, 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 cool. Not the happiest of Fridays in terms of weather here, but you know what? We'll take it. Friday is a Friday. A Friday for art. Just double checking I've got all my ducks in order here, and it looks like I do for once. I'm evolving. Don't expect it every time, but I'm definitely trying. Excuse me. All right. So let's get started, shall we? Good. So I know I'm always looking right down here. I'm looking at again one day, maybe set up a different monitor and a different camera setup slightly, but for now I'm going to be awkward and not acknowledge the camera enough. But anyway, so on this Friday, we are going to do our usual. I want to peep through. I actually have 5 already. I'm very prepared. Pieces on ArtStation that I grabbed as I was scrolling through. I've got a game trailer. I wanted to see. It's probably like a minute, not even. For a Ninja Turtle thing because I like the Ninja Turtles. And then I've got a handful of pictures pulled up from an artist named David Liu. We'll look through his stuff for a minute before I even dive into it. But he just does some cool stuff, really cool stuff. And when we talk about female anatomy, I think this is a good balance. And with David, he does stronger yet still like very feminine figures. And so I think it'll be a nice balance with Phil's, who very gestural, right? Very Glenn Keane, very gestural drawings that Phil has. Whereas I don't want to say I struggle with those, but my brain doesn't go there. Whereas David kind of rides a nice line of stylization and very like sensual for the females, but also still really, really strong. Again, we'll see when we get to that part with David's stuff, but he's very like 80s anime inspired. You were wondering, today is my Buzz Lightyear mug. Beautiful as always, right? My Jank's Buzz Lightyear. I almost said Spider-Man for some reason. Do not know why. I don't even know where the Spider-Man mug is. Our house has so many mugs, like so many mugs, that we've got 3 extra cabinets of overflow mugs. And then at our coffee and tea area, it's like a giant like old dresser basically, decorated nicely. It is that's where we keep all of our actively used mugs. So like we cycle all the time. But so Spider-Man must have been cycled out a while ago. I don't even remember. Anyway, let's peep over at some art. Cool. So the first thing here was literally just this weird collection of mushroom things that I saw. It looked weird, looked different, made me curious what else this individual does. I was gonna say Gregor, but that's with a Z. Ugh, I don't even know, man. Garzargors, Gizargors. Oops, didn't mean to click on it. How do we? I don't know how to say that. Either way, Greg. Let's go look at the mushrooms. I like always like the mushrooms with like found object stuff, right? So a little button, a bead, and like a little rock. Got the fork and the spoon, little coins. Things like these are cool for organics for like shape variation, right? To explore the different shapes and what could be, and they all yet like you look at all those and they all fit still. Largely because he unifies with those eyes, which is nice. He's purple, like just gems of an eye. These are cool. What other stuff do they? Oh, it's from Poland? Who would have guessed by that name and the fact that we're on ArtStation and everybody is not from America? Because everywhere else is better. Yeah, lots of Witcher. Is this the story? I was gonna say this didn't look like concept. This is for the cinematics. Okay, that's cool. Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, so just very fantasy vibe stuff most of the time. Looks pretty cool. Very clean work. Oh, we got a Chun-Li. Always good. If you throw a fighting game character at me, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. That's just that's what I do. Excuse me. New World. Those are some thick werewolf men. Holy stromboli. It almost looks like I'm back on Twitch here, but I'm looking at like all the many pages that do furry art. A little different energy. All right. What else do we got? So in the vein of studying the female stylized anatomy stuff, I saw this one. It looks like this one reminded me of a Soul Calibur character. Speaking of fighting games, Taki. But yeah, so I figured this person might have some cool stuff. The family. I do it all. I do it for the family. The family. Holy cow, those are pretty intense. So what we looked at the other day was super gestural, right? So Phil's stuff was unbelievably gestural. Everything was soft. And I'm trying to be more analytical now when I look at how other people are doing similar things, right? Where they definitely do utilize a lot of curves still, and that is usually, I mean, again, with the female form, it makes sense, but it's definitely something that is pretty common. And almost always accentuating, not always, but like a lot of this person's work accentuates that super tight inner, almost like unrealistic waist line, right above the navel there, under the ribs. But it is interesting because normally you do like the contrapposto we talk about. So like here we've got the legs, hips going this way, shoulders going this way. But then it's like this is its own third cut, right? Like it's its own angle that kind of helps. So like up and breasts are slightly up, and then this is where it starts to break and go down, and then even further down. That's something to keep in mind, perhaps. Lay Bowen. I can read that better than I don't even know. Whatever that other person's name was. Well, ask and you shall receive in terms of female on this one. Holy cow. Well, I'm getting more Chun-Li vibes. Whoa, whenever I see people like paint like super reflective things like that, my brain always breaks a second. Like rendering chrome is something. Yeah, it is weird when I can only imagine like getting typecast so heavily as someone who's like, hey, I do metal now. This is what I draw. This is my life. Give me the gold. Zippity zoppity. Again, like so heavy on this, like really playing up on everything basically that we've seen. This is the same body, obviously repeated. All these female figures though. Ooh, Brotherhood. That's clean. All right. Thank you, Leigh Bowen. This I saw yesterday. You know when you're like you go through your feed and you see something in the corner of your eye and you're like, "Ugh," and then it's gone forever. That's what I was hoping this wasn't going to be. So I the other day when I had ArtStation up when I was closing out my computer, I saw this in the corner of my eye and I was like, "Oh, I hope I see it tomorrow when I go on." And I did. I don't know what's going on here, but I like it. Like I like it a lot. Personal project, cracked world. Let's see what other stuff this person does. Hopefully this chunky weird style. And I am not. Oh, yeah, I'm glad I found this one. Look at all this. This is. I love when they're able to get these like these hand. That's a brick of a hand, right? And these massive noses. Yeah, it's adorable. This stuff. I am very pleased that I was able to. This was still in my feed, and I was able to find it. These like chunky. Ooh, damn. Very like. A lot of gradients, I feel like, on these characters too, like the faces and stuff like that, and a lot of use of just that like really heavy emphasis on those rosy cheeks, right? This person really seems to push like that a lot. Dean Rankin. Why am I blanking on who that is? Dean Rankin. Oh, I could see that. I remember I didn't remember Dean Rankin at first because their stuff, yeah, it makes me uncomfortable a little bit, to be honest. It's that kind of energy where you're like, I feel a way. But yeah, I could totally see that. This is like a, how would you put it? Like, this is more of like the streamlined version, both like politically correct in the sense of being like a little more normalized, and then also like the rendering style is a little more advanced. But yeah, it definitely has like Gleb, Russian dancer and choreographer. Who's Gleb? Gleb sounds like I'm making up a word repeatedly. Gleb? Gleb? Holy crap, that's hilarious. I forgot the person's name was Gleb. ArtStation does this stupid thing now where it shrinks the information, and my brain already forgot. Holy crap. Oh, get glubbed. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was okay. That was rough. Okay, well, I'm going to follow this individual Gleb, a senior 2D artist in mobile games. I could see that. Like I could see this energy being mobile gamey too, like stuff like this. What, Mr. Walrus? I don't know what's going on here, but I like it. I clubbed up. Again, always interesting going like further back in someone's timeline, right? So this is 9 years ago. Holy cow, like so much changes. 9 years, 8 years, 6 years. You can, I love seeing them slowly find like where they're comfortable with their stuff. 4 years, getting a little closer to how we see stuff now where they're like really chunky features, really pushing the subsurface scattering with the reds and stuff like that. but still not quite exactly where they are now. But then like, yeah, I love that. I love going through in someone's art station. Hey, glad you joined to lurk a bit. We're doing the first half where we look at different artists and cool stuff that pops up on ArtStation, and then by like 11-ish, if my timeline's not the worst, it transitions to us drawing. So, but yeah, no, I love looking at this person's name is Gleb too. Keep in mind, Gleb. I'm not gonna mess that up. I remembered it. But no, when they've got an art station that exists for a long time, I love seeing their growth, right? Like being able to see someone's inspirations and where they clearly are leaning into and really finding comfort in their mark making. And this is a perfect example of that, because the style they're currently on, like this, I absolutely adore this picture so much. It is so fun. And I love the fact that even like the thief then, or whatever you want to call this individual type character, he looks like worried, which makes it even more funny. I don't know why I love the fact that the stronger animal looking guy. Right? I know as soon as I saw this wizard, and then this like the little almost hobbity vibe, I was like, ooh, give me Lord of the Rings, right? 100% agree. And even the way that they're able to do like their environment and stuff, I could see doing like a really cute fellowship picture. Yeah, based off of this, then just seeing like a really real good stuff. Yeah, I wanna save this and look more at like, again, I love just breaking down how they draw. So like I would just go through and sketch a handful of these faces myself then, like off stream probably, but I do that a lot where I'll just find something I love of somebody's and just copy the crap out of it for a good like hour just to get that energy, right? To kind of be in their shoes. The textures to the whole paintings, yeah, it like it looks like, yeah, they throw on some sort of basic, like thing on top, but also it looks like it's just partially how they paint, right? Like it looks like they almost, whatever brushes they're using, however they do the stuff, is very very textured work in general, yeah. But it does also look like they have like a slight grain that they just put, like ever so slight. And that's such a hard thing to balance, I feel like, is getting the texture, right? Like, holy cow, excuse me. Sometimes when I do it, I feel like it just looks like, wow, this idiot just slapped on a texture, right? And like somehow people do it in such an expert way where you don't notice the texture, but you feel it, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's something, it sounds easy on paper, but then doing it's more difficult to make it feel so natural, Yeah, I could go through and just like every single one of these from this person. And again, guess what? Not from the US. Who would have thunk it? Classic, amazing artists elsewhere. This looked creepy, and I only saw like this little face mask. It reminded me of at first glance, oh my god, from Hunter x Hunter, the cat girl has the doctor. It's like Doctor something. And it had that vibe of like a weird floaty marionette almost energy. Not really visually much. It was the vibe I got. What is that name? Hunter x Hunter, cat girl, doctor. How's it called? Dr. Blythe. No, yeah, P2. Yeah, P2, but Dr. Blythe was what I was picturing. Again, not visually, but just the energy. For some reason, like it hit me with that vibes. Like, I don't know why. Just because this doesn't even look that intense. But I feel like in the anime, it looks grosser somehow. Like that looks really clean and simple, but she looked real gross, I feel like, when in movement. But yeah, I don't know why my brain just went to that for some reason. I guess it could just be even just the hunch, right? That hunch of like a weird, creepy thing. and something that makes me uncomfortable. They have that in common. Ooh. That's even more horrifying if that's kind of the movement pattern for this giant thing. I pictured it like my brain sees that as like a slow like thing, just like moving with its arms and the blades there and like dragging. But that would be absolutely horrifying seeing him fling around like a gymnast. Oh, I feel like you don't see that often, which is cool. Like people's like rough animation work. That would be cool to find. I don't have. I wish ArtStation had that. I don't think they do they? Like I don't think they have any like animation stuff really on ArtStation. Motion graphics maybe, but that's not quite the same. I don't know if I've ever broken down and looked. I need to add some more of these. Really? Do I not have half of these added into my channels? Again, my ArtStation, they've changed it a couple times and I always kind of forget how they've got stuff set up. So yeah, some of these things I definitely want to add in. Like, why do I not have, like pixels, portraits, sketches, tutorials would be cool, actually. I'd like, do you just click this and it just comes in now? Cool, look, we're learning. I'm learning. TV, VFX for that. Not vehicles. I don't know why. Vehicles never get me. It just, I already followed that one. I love sci-fi so much that my brain apparently was like, yeah, I already checked it, but I'm going to check it again. Can never get enough sci-fi. Not horror. No, thank you. Costume design. Creatures and how do I, yeah, what? So have I just not been seeing these things? I feel like children's art would be great. They're such cute things. Okay, so now does that just mean it's going to be like in this overall feed? Or no? I don't really understand it. Or now I just can go up here and it's like an extra thing I can look at? Okay. I thought it was like I was building my own custom like feed. I think it is then, right? I don't know. I don't understand. I need a tutorial on how to look at things, please. All right, whatever. I'll look more at it later. We got one more piece to look at from Valerio. Oh, I know this. I followed this person. I was like, that name sounds familiar. It's no Gleb. But you know, not everybody can be Gleb. More of the female anatomy energy going on here still too. And mermaids are just cool. Again, as always, just really the main takeaway is accentuating the little hips, I guess, is how you really sell femininity, or the waist, I guess, and big hips. But again, it's hard. My brain just goes, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. The body doesn't go that extreme. I'm fine making muscles extreme, like making them humongous. I'll draw the Incredible Hulk when I close my eyes. But then you're like, yeah, but what if you make like the female anatomy extreme? I'm like, no. What if we just give them muscles? Ooh, yes, I do remember this one. They did the gargoyle stuff and they did the biker mice. I do definitely remember this person. Oh. Did they work on the designs? I don't know. All I know is I never got these then, and I'm kind of bummed I didn't. I never saw them, and I couldn't really find, like, there was no easy way to order them, and I was trying not to spend a lot of money when these came out now. But like, man, the biker mice from Mars, that was my jam so much. I carried those toys around all over. But yeah, no, this person's stuff is great. They've been doing a lot of TCG stuff lately, which is, I feel like all of my favorite artists now are like, yeah, we work with Marvel Snap, Lorcana, you know, any of the above. And you're like, yep, that checks out. You do amazing things, so please do more. I always like this Radigan card. I remember this art stood out to me for some reason among the early set. They've got a good, like, so they do a lot of like these like really graphic stuff. Almost reminds me, what's the Lyle, right? Lyle Styles or whatever, how they do stuff. Lyle, right? Is that what they go by? I think it's something like that. Lyle Style. Is this the right person? I hope so. Okay, yeah. Similar energy. Kind of like the way they like simplify these shapes into very basic forms, right? Again, not exactly, but just finding common through lines between stuff. Oh man, there used to be that Clone Wars art book, man. I had that Clone Wars art book, and when I was in school, that was like attached to my hip. I carried that sucker around. It was so beat up. That was one where, like, for some reason, I just brought it everywhere. I just loved opening it up and seeing the Clone Wars designs. Like, I had looked through that book a billion times over. Didn't matter. Still enjoyed every moment of getting to look through it. It's right there. Surprise, it's right in front of me because it never leaves my side. So they must do a lot of, but he does, this person does the modeling too? Is that even more impressive that they've got this amazing, cute art style? So did they model these? I assumed the biker mice thing they just came up with a concept for. Digital model I made. Holy cow. This person does it all. That's amazing. I did not realize that they did the 3D models too. Right? Yeah, 3D models, more 3D models, and then a dope 2D artist, like a very established 2D artist too. Man, so you look at that kind of stuff sometimes and you're just like, I'm trash. Like, it's so hard not to compare to other people when you see stuff like this where you're like, man, like, this is great. Their 3D stylization, especially when they're like, yeah, I drew this fun illustration and then I modeled it. Like, oh my gosh, you can do it all. But yeah, that Spirited Away one was adorable. This one, that was a good one too. I thought they worked for Crash 4 as well. I was like, no way. But it's unofficial, like their own project they did. But even still, the fact that they could do stuff that my brain thought that it was actually from the game. Yowzers. That's impressive. Well, there's the one line that Magneto, actually, I'm not a huge fan of this, to be quite honest. This is one of the first things I'm looking at of his that doesn't vibe with me for some reason. Something about it feels off. But there's like a line where, like, in Marvel Rivals, when Magneto does something with Wolverine and he says, like, it never does get old ragdolling your body around, Logan, or something like that. And I was like, oh my God. Such a good line. Just the idea of him being like, yeah, I love throwing you around, you piece of crap. All right. Well, I could get lost looking at all of this stuff and then being unbelievably jealous of their immense skills. Ooh, you got a Star Trek one down here? A little Worf. Okay. Oh, I apparently liked it 7 years ago. Not a surprise. Not a surprise. What are all... I use for... Stupid notifications. Go away. Okay. So the one thing, I'd sent it to a group chat with all my friends, but there's a game called Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate. It is amazing, first and foremost. It's a roguelike Ninja Turtle game. And I think when I got my Nintendo year in review, I think this was my most played game of the year. the Splintered Fate. If it wasn't this, it was Steam World Heist 2 or something. But either way, one of my most played Switch games of the year, and I do play a healthy amount of Switch. Shameless plug for anybody listening who isn't Lopology. Hello Kitty Island Adventure came out yesterday on the Nintendo Switch. Go get some cozy gaming. But yeah, so this is DLC. I didn't think they were going to release any DLC. This game originally, like Hello Kitty Island Adventure, actually came out as a an Apple Arcade exclusive for the longest time, and then it finally came over to Switch, and it's still actually not on other consoles. Like, it's just Apple. I think PC has it, and the Nintendo Switch. We've got one friend who complains every time a game doesn't come to the Xbox. Even though he has a Switch, he has a PlayStation, and he has a gaming PC. But he'll complain every time that it's not on the Xbox. You know who you are, and you're a monster. Anyway, let's see the trailer, shall we? I sent it, but didn't actually get a chance to look at it. Again, it's an like a top-down roguelike, so nothing crazy. Oh my, I bet he is. I don't check my phone while I'm streaming. I love these little junkyard Mousers. I absolutely love that idea. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Having like junkyard, like scrap metal Mousers. That's adorable. We've got the punk frogs. No, no, no. Okay, what did I learn? Periods. Okay. Punk frogs, man. I've got an iconic IDW cover over in the office, framed. I absolutely love it. We'll look up that cover in a second just to show it off because it's one of my favorite covers. All right, all right. And so we only had 4 characters, obviously, in the Turtles. So I am curious how, like, is it new DLC that we can play and have Casey in the main game now, I'm assuming, too, and this is just a new area? I don't know. I'm stoked. I'm really excited because I had hoped this game would get, support after the fact, but you never know with games. Like, this did great. Like, they posted a bunch of, like, success about it, but excuse me, I never, in today's world, you can never tell what's going to be able to keep moving or not. But I'm super stoked. I hope this means even more. Like, if this sells well, it doesn't even say if it's like it doesn't say free update. It just says DLC. So it's got to be a paid for expansion. Is it up already in like the store pages, I wonder? Did I like it? I liked it. Ugh, I hate when this is a weird little nuanced complaint that I have. IGN posts a lot of trailers, right? I don't really care for IGN, right? IGN's kind of pooped the bed over many, many, many moons. There are times, sometimes, like, I do a lot of Street Fighter content that I love. IGN will post the new Street Fighter trailers and things like that. And that's usually the first thing that comes up in my feed still, even though I subscribe to Street Fighter content, not IGN content, right? And so I know I saw there, it was not a good review. They said like it was long in the tooth and stuff like that. I did read that. I wasn't even going to share it. I saw it though. Hopefully other games are giving better reviews. But like we always say, IGN is just like a weird nebulous place. Everything's subjective, obviously, but like IGN's gotten poopy. But so I literally usually go out of my way to find the original. So like, what would this be? This is, who does this one again? Super Evil Megacore, right? Super Evil Megacore. And I usually try and go to their page and make sure I like it from them. even though they clearly don't have a lot of subscribers, they don't, you know what I mean? Like, I usually, IGN, whenever IGN posts something, I'm always like, okay, who sent it though? You know what I mean? Like, I need to give them the thumbs up. But okay, hey, perfect plug then right now. It is on sale on the Nintendo Switch right now, 35% off. The base game, obviously, does not appear. Oh, it's going to be $6.99. Man, Nintendo, like small DLC like this is always funny when it's like, there's the other Ninja Turtle game and it was like, it's $2. And you're like, it's $2. Okay, it's $2. Sure. Like, what? There's a digital art book on the Steam version? Though honestly, looking at this, I wonder if it's just the more key arty kind of stuff. How many pages it is? Usually it's like 64 pages, right? Doesn't say. Give me a real art book. I'll buy it. I don't want a digital one like this. It always is weird when it's like, hey, here's like when PlayStation does it and stuff too. It's like you get a digital art book. I'm like, okay, but can it give you extra money and you send me one? Because I want more. But yeah, I'd like to. How much can you just buy the digital art book? Okay, it's $4. Can we actually get on my actual Steam right now? Splintered Fate. Man, I totally wish. I wish I could transfer this then and play this on stream then instead. Like, it's weird having everything now on PC when I used to always just play it on the Switch. Like a lot of these games, like the game I'm playing now, Ender Magnolia, that's a game I would have played on the Switch, but I'm playing it on PC now because I can. Out of my wish list. I'll look at this later then. I don't want to do this right now on stream, but dang, that's now I want to buy this on but I've beaten the game and like it's got so much meta progression that like I put so much time into the game. I'm not about to start that over. Not happening. I should look into. So I've got the thing that I plug in for the iPad. I doubt it would work, but that would be pretty rad if I could actually just plug in my Switch to the same cable that I use for my iPad and it would just read the video. I don't think it would work that way, but I should probably try it, I guess, just to see. Might as well. Anyway, we're done with Ninja Turtles. So I'm excited. What was the date for this? What did we establish? February 5th. That is literally Wednesday. Is that when? It's comic book stuff. Don't worry about it. I think the Ninja Turtles Master of the Universe crossover is Wednesday, the 3rd issue. Fun stuff. A day of Ninja Turtle galore. Okay. So what I wanted to look at was David Liu. So David Liu is an awesome 2D artist. And apparently maybe he also does 3D stuff because that's apparently the cool thing. That they can just do it all, right? Unbelievably impressive artists. But so David does a lot of stuff within like the fighting game community in particular. He's a Capcom creator, so he does a lot of stuff with Capcom stuff. Excuse me. But also they do a lot, like if we see their style, oh my goodness, excuse me. It's very like this kind of stuff. Feels like 80s or 90s anime energy, right? The eyes, the hair, the muscle, like the definition even. But also they do female anatomy really well, right? Like all of these look great, but they're also beefy as heck, right? Like he does an amazing job of making both pieces shine, right? He found like this perfect middle ground of being like, yes, overly feminine in terms of how he like tightens up shapes and accentuates, you know, the breasts and the thighs and stuff, but also they still look strong, right? Like these characters do not look like just like giant booby McGee's, right? And so I really love this energy that he's able to capture. And I wanted to do then, I figured for a couple weeks then, or a week-ish, I would at least do this kind of stuff like I did the other day with David's, where just going through and breaking down how other people do this kind of stuff. And so I think today is going to be a David Liu day. And I have a bunch already pulled up over here of things to do like a quick breakdown on. But for the moment, I figure we can cruise through and at least just look at the breadth of his work, right? Like it's not just females. Obviously, he does. Like, that looks dope. Oh, by Dotemu. I forgot that one, which is also who made the other Ninja Turtle game. Done a good amount of the new Metal Slug stuff too. I'm assuming, I don't know. It's always funny because like I don't even know what the actual artists look like half the time. So it is funny when I see a picture, I'm like, oh, that's him. Dope. Cool. Some cool watercolors with that Tekken piece. I always forget. That's why I don't like looking at Instagram with it, because you can't like open in a new tab. Ooh, we talked about having some animated stuff. I forgot he's done a couple little things like that. I thought there was another one he did. Yeah. He did a whole sequence like as if she was going to be put into a game like a Contra game. Fun fact, that's actually the very first drawing tablet I ever got. I don't even know what it was. It was like a green, chunky, beat up little thing. I don't even know what it was. It didn't have a brand. It just existed. And it was one of my friends growing up. His name was Dan. And he was studying to work with games, right? Like he was a big engineer, right? He actually worked at Sony then. He works at, I think he's at Riot now, actually, surprisingly. With all the talk we always do with like Arcane and League and stuff. But I'm pretty sure he's at Riot now, or he was last I saw. And but I remember when we were younger, he's like, "We got to make a game. You can draw it, and I'll code it. I'll make it." And we made like the rough work of a Metal Slug game, because that's what we thought. We were like, okay, well, it's easy to draw sprites like that, right? Like those games don't have like insane motion that you can get by with just like, standing, holding a gun, crouching, looking up, looking 45 degrees, and a jump, right? Like you only needed really like a handful of things, and then everything else could just be, in motion. But yeah, he gave me his tablet. He had like some cheap random like off-brand Temu vibed tablet thing. And the stylus, the pen was what was it? It was green as well. Like it was like the old school like 90s, like where like the technology was see-through, like your Game Boy and stuff like that. And it required like, I think it was AA batteries. And so you would have to like open it up, and the whole thing was basically like, here we have the Apple Pencil, but imagine this was like a thick thing with like 2 AA batteries in it. And then the thing that held it, like you had to spin it, it had broken by the time he had given it to me even. And so it was just taped with just Scotch tape, not even like electrical tape, because you needed to take it off to change the batteries like all the time. So funny how far we've come now, where I went from using that to now I'm like, oh, I've got this iPad that is basically with me wherever I go. I've got this little pen that just snaps on magnetically and is charged just by touching something. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. Technology, am I right? But so shout out to Dan, right? I hope you're doing great. I hope you're kicking butt. You always were. So I wouldn't, he was one of those guys that like, he was a determined dude and he knew what he was going to do and he did it. So always proud to see friends just kick it, you know? Okay, so here's a jury. They're very, again, we always talked about the soft edges, but he actually doesn't. He still uses these hard edges, but really, like we said, they really like snatch in at waist. And I think that's, even with these hard edges, they're selling that. And then like he accentuates it here with a lot of this character where her waist is cut in, but then her hips are made even larger by the equipment that she's got. This is fantastic. A Bowsette in Darkstalker's energy. Did I ever like this one? This is 10 out of 10. But okay, so we've got David's stuff up. And just want to go through real quick then. So I'll grab the iPad now. It's here somewhere. And I'll switch out my coffee because my Buzz Lightyear coffee is empty. It was dripping. Let me throw on some lo-fi in the background real quick though. Cool. One second. One second Britain time is quadruple usually. So actually I was early. So like 1 second Britain time is quadruple. So it should have been 4 seconds. But so if it was only 3 seconds, that was actually early. So thanks. Thanks for pointing out I was faster. I'm so speedy. Yeah, I grew up with my mother who my mother was notorious. So I was joking the other day. I think I was talking to my grandma about it or something, but it's funny because like my mom is the worst when it comes to stuff like that. I don't know how to read, okay? That's why I draw pictures and play video games. Leave me alone. Don't call me out like that on streams that I don't know how to read. Jeez. Okay? You and your fancy books, Dr. Lopology. Give me pictures, all right? I told you. Make them, have it be a comic adaptation. Make Gleb make a comic adaptation of Mistborn, and then I will read it, okay? Easy. That's all you need to do. Yeah, losers. No, every time you can't. Can you see it in the picture? I don't think you can. Can we see that? I don't know. Let's go to. So you can't really see, but right here, all along the ledge, the glebening, all along the edge of my bookshelf, where the bottom shelf is, well, the very bottom shelf, those are comic books all over, but the bottom lower, there's novels anyway. But I always love in like fantasy where books are just stacked, right? You just got stacks and stacks of books all over the place. And so that's what I wanted here. I was like, it looks like a mess if you do it, but I'll at least put one big stack. So when you sit on the beanbag, the whatever, it's not beanbag, but the fancy memory foam thing, it's just a giant stack of books next to you. And I don't know why. It makes me happy because it reminds me of, like I said, just like a fantasy, like you're going into a wizard's like house and they've just got books everywhere. And so I don't want to look like an absolute ragamuffin and have books everywhere, but I could at least do that. I was like, Amy, is that stupid? Are you okay if I do that? Does that look too messy? She's like, no, everything you pick usually is like clean enough. So it's nice. The glebening. Yeah, that's the new word. Okay, so yeah, just hiding yours in the closet or the floor, you know, great options. Great options. Yeah, even with a house, I don't have enough space. And I have an office and a game room. Like, and there's still not enough. So, I don't know. Never enough space. And then, oh, I guess while I'm on stream here, I can point out. So the other day I was doing more of the anatomy stuff, and I wanted to push one of those drawings. So on Wednesday, we ended, and I like half-assed this. Where is the first one? This one. That was just out of my butt. I was trying to come up with something real quick for a pose. And I was like, I don't know why I gave her like the ponytail and stuff. And that reminded me very heavily of a Street Fighter character then. And so I just pictured her. And you can see I just went through like a couple iterations. Excuse me. And ended on this quick little Ibuki I did yesterday. But yeah, so let's open up a new file. Just my black sketching brush. So interesting thing for anybody who uses Procreate that I never realized. Like this, I feel like an idiot. I didn't know you could do this. I saw somebody do it like last week on a different stream, and I didn't even ask them about it. I immediately just grabbed my iPad and I was like, wait, how do you do that? Look at this. So we've got our slider here on the left, right? Like the size. So let's say you have a size or an opacity, right? That you like to bounce between regularly. So like whenever I change size, I just do this all the time. I'm like, okay, I want a big one. I want a smaller one. I want like, I like kind of like a 1/3 size for this brush. It's like a nice thin one, or like right here, right? These are kind of the sizes I like. But look at this. Did you know you can hit the plus sign when on this? And now you can just snap. So plus sign. So now you just tap it. You just tap and it goes right to that specific size. And it's always going to be that size you like then. It's consistent. I felt like an idiot. I'm like, I've used Procreate for I don't even know how long. And who knows, maybe that's a newer feature and I just never knew. But the fact that you can just quickly add and remove it with that plus and minus, and I never bothered. Right? I literally, it's so obvious there's a plus sign. How have I never thought of what the plus sign meant? Like, literally, you just make sure it's in the spot, tap the actual slider itself, plus, done. Like, and again, same with opacity. If I just want, like, because I sometimes want a lighter version of it, 60%, 100%, and then it saves for that brush. So now if I switch, right, to my liner, it's not there. But every time I go back to the sketching, it is saved on that brush even too. Like I felt so stupid when you see something that you're like, holy crap, that was, who knew? I certainly didn't. But we do now. And we can tell all of our Procreate buddies. Okay, so let's just crank these out and just do, I don't want to do, so the other day with fills, I did a little bit more detail than I wanted with a lot of them. I just want to crank out the shapes, right? That's all I want to focus on right now and understand how they make the shapes. So first and foremost, 11:30, you know what time that is. A little piece of chocolate. Otherwise, I get sleepy, especially seeing as it's like rainy as hell out right now and gross. The other day when I played games on stream, excuse me, it was like pitch black outside, like by 3:30, pitch black. And so I'm in my game room here in just like total darkness playing the game. And by the time I was done, my brain was kind of frazzled. Like, I don't like that. I need the sun. But okay, so I forget the way I've got this set up. I need to snap it, right? So it's more centered on the little window on stream. So there we go. So again, looking at this, there's nothing crazy, right? Nothing too crazy about this shape. But again, I think the focus is he breaks down the shape in almost, again, not trying to draw what he drew, trying to understand the shapes behind what he drew. So I feel like a lot of his stuff is for females, right? It's circle and then cylinder. Like a really heavy cylinder. So I'm used to drawing more boxy stuff, right? And you just kind of like cut in and do whatever, right? Like my brain always wants to like make it flow more. But I think looking at his shapes, we really need to realize, we just talked about that. Let's make a 40. Oh gosh. A 40%, a 10% for really thin, and like 80. Just to be cool, right? So when people look at my stream, they're like, wow, I wonder how that guy did it. And I'll be like, hold up. Let me tell you. I cannot get it straight at 80%. I did it. And then they'll be like, wow, this guy's the coolest. He knows how to do. He knows how to he knows how to hit that plus button, am I right? But no, so I think that's my big takeaway is that the shapes that the female form seem to conform to more with a lot of these stylized approaches especially are that of like, so I'm a nerd, a fitness nerd. My brain sees this as like a dumbbell. Like that's what I see, right? So I feel like I need to look at it as the dumbbell approach. That we're looking at these, realistically, it looks like one of those dog toys. Kind of like, but that's kind of what I think I'm going to look at. So if I look at the rest of his stuff right now, that's similar energy, right? Circle, cylinder, circle. Pretty much with every single one of his shapes, right? At every single one, we can break it down into just those two shapes, right? A circle and a cylinder. And it's the placement of the cylinder that really changes it, I think. So the cylinder causes this kind of an interaction here, right? It causes a sharper point, both in going from the hips to the lats and from the waist to the lats and from the waist to the hips, right? Both of those become notable junction points. So whereas like Phil just kind of did a nice, right, gesture for everything, this seems more suited for how I look at things, more structural of like shape, right? Define shapes. So this is not quite what this looks like at all, so we can just clear that. But now with that in mind, we can look at the shape that way. So let's draw actually, as always, the slight line of action, right? So her head comes in from the front, her chest curves forward, and then we're going to follow her right leg and then comes down, right? Basic line of action here. And so we'll build those shapes now on top of it. So her chest is the circle. Too small. The chest is the circle. The head is this other little circle, but that's fine. We're not worrying about that. But then the waist is the cylinder, right? And the cylinder cuts so that we're going to create this strong lat line. So the circle, the cylinder, and then the circle again for her hips. Obviously, we're adjusting the curvature of these circles, right? And the angle, but really, that's all it is, right? We've got this circle, cylinder, circle. And then obviously you've got other body parts that get added on. So you've got her legs that are going to come out with a little bit of a butt showing based on that. You'll see a little bit of the glute. But it's nothing too wild then. So we've got the curvature of her chest. So she's oriented with the shoulders in front. circle here. Arm comes down, foreshortened, so the hand's pretty big comparatively. And again, where Phil was very soft with his arms and his legs and all these things, David does a good job of still having like softness to the arms, but that looks strong as hell, right? Like this is a beefy woman and she could mess you up. Like, so definitely focusing not as much on the individual marks that David uses, but more of the overall shape that he conveys, right? This is an interesting one too, because I always work with my contrapposto, right? I always love doing harder differences between hips and shoulders. This one's kind of flat. It feels like a very stable. So the shoulders are pretty flat. The intersection points of the quads into the hips are pretty flat too. But there's like a slight. So technically, if we look, he does have her right shoulder going up a little bit. And then with the heavy emphasis of this glute coming down, it does come down this way then. So there's like a slight curvature, not necessarily the exact hip and the shoulder, but the energy, right? So this proportions are absolutely a mess. Like this does not look good, and that's okay. I'm just trying to establish these, again, the design thought behind what he's doing, not the actual thing, because this looks very, very weird. But again, I think we can quickly just kind of make this really light and then just kind of illustrate the idea a little better. Now again, just roughing these in. So we've got the lat into the waist, into the other circle of the hip, right? And the hip has a little bit of a little movement because we've got the butt sticking on the side a little bit into her really big quad. And as we usually talk about, so usually we want the quad to be angled in space in terms of where anyone's little parts stick out. So the quad usually sticks out lower on the outer side. Like if you think of a bodybuilder when they flex and stuff, it goes knee and then like juts out, right? But then the inner part of the leg has these are referred to as your adductors, the muscles in between like your thighs kind of. So then the adductor sticks out a little bit when flexed. So then you get this movement in the leg. And so it's usually pretty subtle. You don't have to overdo it, but it at least gives the leg a little bit more shape. And it looks like, most of the people we've looked at do the same thing, because that's just kind of the way the anatomy works. That's not like a unique to anyone kind of thing. But so again, playing up these circles, right? To push the waist being really little, and then the hips coming out pretty big. So again, same idea here, that the emphasis of the curve starts earlier on the inside and later on the outside of the leg. Again, I cannot stress enough that I'm not trying to draw this picture like to replicate it. I'm just trying to pull the energy out and understand his thought process when making these shapes. I am with the lo-fi music right now. I saw something pop up in my feed, and it was like somebody here in Chicago went to a jazz club and they were like a big jazz club, right? Like not like two jazz band ensemble. Like it was like 8 people performing at this jazz band, and they were playing Legend of Zelda music. And I was like, that is amazing. Give me the address. I'm going there this weekend. It's only a half-hour drive to the city, basically. I'm in. It is weird when you live. So I live not too far from Chicago, right? It's really just a stone's throw away, just outside of the city. Um, but it's weird because I'm just far enough that my brain always is like, I don't want to go into the city. Like, just far enough, which seems so silly when in reality, it's not much further than going to like visit my family, right? Like going to my mom and dad's house is almost the same distance as us going into the city. The difference being the city is busier and more of a pain in the butt, but it is comical when you live so close, you almost take it for granted, right? That you're like, yeah, I'm here. I'm in the city. This is fine. I've got it when I need it. But then you don't really take advantage of it. Which, I mean, I've lived in the Midwest the Midwest generally my whole life, but Illinois for a good majority of my life. And it's just, yeah, weird how you take for granted the city and all that's here because there's a metric poop ton of stuff going on at any time. Man, looking at this, yeah, this looks funny. This is not a good looking drawing. But again, I'm just kind of talking out the thoughts behind it and just jutting down the shapes. Because I feel like last Wednesday, I did a little more. I did it longer for each pose, and I don't want to do that. I just kind of want to crank out the ideas behind them and focus on the core elements that make them feel the way they feel. But okay, so this looks really dumb, but we can still take away the core shapes that we found, right? And if we wanted, we can always use our handy dandy notebook that is the liquify brush and kind of adjust if we really cared enough. Oh my gosh. And kind of play with it more. So like really pushing these shapes more. He does make, so it is interesting. That's something I've struggled with too, is trying to figure out how to draw breasts in a like realistic manner. Because I always want to make them smaller, right? That's always my knee-jerk reaction, is to make them more like realistic and smaller. Whereas like when you do this way of doing it with a tube, right? The tube in the middle, it kind of helps because whatever you draw for the chest is going to be bigger than that tube, right? So if you do the circle, circle, dot, dot kind of vibe, right? Like circle, circle, dot, dot, circle, circle, line, line, it kind of fixes itself then, right? Like I like the idea of finding solutions in other ways. So I've talked about that before. Like if, let's say I was struggling to get like, oh my God, I can't get this shoulder shape right. Well, maybe it wasn't the shoulder. Maybe it's the surrounding pieces, right? And so trying to work backwards in a way and find ways that eliminate the problem before they happen is pretty cool. Okay, so this is absolutely stupid looking, but it's fine. We are going to just put the emphasis then on, like we said, the shape language that he's given us. So moving on, let's see how he handles this. So again, Chun-Li here. I'm sorry, Cammy. Similar vibe, right? If we look first, we see a big tube, a very big tube. Oh, it's funny. I just looked at my phone. I see the complaint about the Xbox. But so her shape is tube, like an outstretched tube, right? And then a circle. We can see her lats form the circle into the shoulders eventually. But it's just a circle going this way, and then another circle this way. That's it. That's like her whole shape, right? So again, when you refine this, it becomes a little easier, I'm sure. Ooh, this would be a good one too to have things locked. I feel like my eraser size is always super, like I either want a big one or a really small one, right? So here's a good example of where that comes in handy. So basic shapes. Again, I'll say it 1,000 times because for whenever anybody pops in and they see me drawing like a ragamuffin, I'm not drawing the thing, I'm drawing the energy. So if we try and break down, so this hip goes up. I drew this really tiny for some reason. The circle is the hips and they're going down, right? And you've got the curvature of that hip and the curvature still of the hip this way. We've got a little bit of crunch coming in here and then a nice long stretch. So when we looked at Phil's stuff, he did a lot of squish on one side, stretch on another, right? Just like the old, when you study animation, we all learn on basically like, it's like a potato sack, right? Because learning animation on a sack makes the most sense because you get the most movement out of it. But realistically, that helps with a lot of things because you realize when like the potato sack sits, right? It will usually always sit where there's like some sort of crunched side and then something outstretched. And that's kind of how most shapes form, right? We're looking at things in a tight space countered with a stretched space. So good old potato sack or whatever. Sandbag, whatever you want to look at it as. So if we're looking back here, we've got that strong, long stretch. Granted, this long stretch keeps going, right? But realistically, then it breaks for the lats because her arms are up. So a little bit of a crunch. And then the lats are kind of where this other circle is, right? So the lats are more of this circle when it connects now. So her lats come up. Her arms are up and just looking up. Face looking to the side. And then again, just kind of roughing in her arms. Flour. Thank you. They're flour sacks. I don't know why my brain kept saying, I'm like, it's not a potato. Oh my gosh, a flour sack. You are 1,000% correct. Thank you. I'm like, potato would be hella lumpy. I know it's not potato, but like, you know, when you say a thing and you're just like, I'm committed because this is what I've said, and my brain in the moment is not thinking of the actual other thing. But you know what? If you want to draw potato sacks too, I appreciate letting me run with it. Maybe that's like, oh, potatoes and molasses. Oh. Is it? I don't want it to be Halloween time yet, but like, I'm ready to watch that again. Like, I'm fine. But I'm not about ready to skip the summer just to watch Over the Garden Wall. I need my son. I need it real bad. I think I made her a little long here, but that's okay. That's not really the point. So we've got her body and her hips cross the other way, right? So it goes down. We've got the groin sticking out and then the one leg crossing over. For my own edification, though. Oh gosh. I'm going to do my thing where I just erase a middle and then drag it because it was looking a little way too long. Again, I'm not drawing the arms fully, but it is interesting again that he does a good amount of definition in everything, right? He's not oversimplifying any shapes. He's letting us see a lot of these forms and the plane breaks. Like even like this little bit of the tricep has a little cut down into the posterior delt and stuff like that. Like there's still plenty of movement. Not gonna draw her, but I'll give her her little beret just so we know it's Cammy, right? Oh look, there's a beret. You forgot your baguette, as Michael says. So a lot of muscles though, right? Like when you draw a lot of muscles, they do have a lot of like hard edges, which is interesting because right now he's doing soft, right? For the female form, a lot of soft edges for the muscles. But then even still, I know there's other images that we're going to look at in a second where he still accentuates with hard edges on the female muscle too. So it's not like there's a steadfast rule of like he does one or the other or anything like that. It's kind of like whatever works in the moment, right? And that's, I think, sometimes the hardest part is understanding that, like, what's the vibe in the moment that works the best? Like, you don't have to stick to your way of doing stuff always. Like I said, with what we're doing here today and this week in general, we're folding in these ideas. We're not taking the ideas and using them one to one. We're folding these ideas into our own so that when we make forms and we do these things, we have this understanding of, hey, this is how it could be done, right? It doesn't have to be done every time, but it can be done this way. Oops. Gotta fold in the cheese. Okay, so I'm getting to a little noodly here. I don't need to keep working on this. Again, looks like garbage, and that's okay. The shapes are there, and I like light erase just so we can actually see the form among all of my super sketchy, crazy nonsense that I am so etchy when I draw that it is quite messy, but that's okay. It's crazy when people aren't, right? Like when you see the masters who are able to just draw. You need, okay. So in Schitt's Creek, it's a reference to Schitt's Creek, but only cool people have actually seen Schitt's Creek. You know, there's plenty of dumb people in this world who haven't ever seen Schitt's Creek, and you know, they're just behind the curve. But once all people know Schitt's Creek and all of the lovely references. Oh, even better. I thought you were saying, because I was saying, because I said it like 6 times. Yes, when David says, if you say fold in one more time. Okay. I take it back. You're aware of the glory. Okay, so we've got, man, I keep saying Chun-Li. Cammy is beefy as hell in this version that I just quickly rushed in here. I like it, though. I like it. I like that he can show off this, like, really strong energy, but also very very still extremely feminine for like my purposes of being able to draw that, you know. So he actually has the lat so big it comes beyond the chest here, which is pretty big lat. Yeah, so speaking of then Schitt's Creek, we watched we're still cruising through with St. Denis Medical. And that is definitely a good one. Like every time we watch it, like the characters more, like the interactions more. I'm really hoping that that show gets the opportunity to grow. And that's, I feel like we talk about that all the time with today's day and age, that like sitcoms don't start out the gate amazing usually. It doesn't work that way. Like you need to learn to care about the characters. You need to learn to, the characters need to learn how they want to be the characters, right? Like everybody grows into it, and we just expect greatness out the gate way too often. And then these streaming services and the companies are like, well, it's not a 10 immediately, so it must be a 0. And it's like, that is not how the world works. That's not how the creative field works. Like I'm drawing right now, right? And me drawing, it looks like poop at first sometimes. And even when it's not, well, even when it's done, it still looks like poop. Yeah, Parks and Rec is the like the epitome of like a case study of how that works, right? Like they changed gears so heavily from the first season. They got rid of Mark entirely. They started writing Mark out. They changed the way Leslie's love interest worked. They changed Andy Dwyer's entire character. They changed so much because they found what worked, because they had the time to do so. But if you don't give something time, it needs to find its footing. So when I'm drawing, the sketch kind of looks rough. It looks crappy, right? But if you give it time, you can finesse it and make it look better. You just need to get in the groove. Or even like me in general, when I'm doing art, like when I start drawing in the morning, I'm usually really bad. And then the more I draw, the better I can, right? Like because you are finding that groove on a daily basis, but it's the same idea. And so I'm hoping beyond hope that because St. Denis Medical, fortunately, is already off to, in my mind, a relatively good start, that means they're going to get the opportunity to keep growing. And I'm hoping because Spritzer's is the showrunner, they've got the pedigree, so Spritzer made Superstore as well. And so because they have that pedigree, I'm hoping start off to a good start. They've got, like proof in the pudding, right? That they can do stuff, that it's going to be able to at least get a couple seasons, signed up. Because I'm enjoying the characters. And I'm a person who, I used to watch the Goldbergs all the time. The Goldbergs is such an amazing television show in so many ways. Like, I love it because I grew up in the 90s, but I did not miss out still on a lot of the 80s stuff because my dad is younger. And so I grew up with my dad being only 19 years older than me or so, right? He's not like, they were young when they had me. And so since they were young, I still had the remnants of all of my dad's stuff in the 80s. Like I had all of that stuff growing up. I had all of his Kenner Star Wars stuff. I had his ColecoVision. I had my aunt's Nintendo. I had all of these things. But then watching the Goldbergs, it was cool because then I was able to I picture, because my dad's a little goober too, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm watching my dad grow up, like in a silly way. And so I don't know, I really like that show. But what I was getting at is the mom in that is the I guess I don't know what her technical role is in St. Denis Medical. She's like the executive, whatever. The hospital president. I have no idea what the terms are. But I love that lady. She is so funny, and her character is great too. And I don't know. I'm ranting and vamping, but I just really want that show to succeed. I really want more sitcoms like that really hit hard. And like there was the new one with Tim Allen. And my grandma was like, "Oh, did you see the new one?" And I was like, I wanted to, but be politically, let's just say, without getting too much into stuff, I just didn't. There's certain people nowadays that I don't care to support, right? And I don't care to have their content be in my own realm of the world. And Tim Allen, unfortunately, is one of them. And so I'm like, well, I bet the show is funny. And she was explaining it to me. Literally sounds like every character he ever plays. Like, Tim Allen knows how to play one person, and he plays it every time. It's like, oh, you've got a garage, you've got cars, you think you're a man's man because you, whatever, like, cool. That's your same character always. Neat. So I know how I said I didn't want to go too far into this, and then I enjoy this pose. This pose has a lot of movement, and so I've kind of given up looking at what he drew. Because yeah, if I look, like, he's got like a thigh gap, I like crossed her leg a little more. Like I said, I'm just trying to get my own understanding of these shapes then my way. I'm gonna open my own paper company. I like how when I quickly just roughed in this beret, it looks like she's got a shower cap on. And it kind of looks like she just is like coming out of the shower or something. Whatever. That works too. That's fine. A beret, a shower cap. Same energy, right? Yeah, so for anybody ever listening, go watch St. Denis Medical. It is. So we had a conversation before about getting rid of streaming services and how we could, it was suggested like, I'll just watch the shows that I want when they come on and then I'll switch services. That's impossible. There's too much stuff. There's way too much damn stuff. And St. Denis Medical is a funny example because it's a Peacock show, right? What the heck do you watch on Peacock? Like, literally, I own the Peacock subscription service solely to watch The Office. Like, it is because of if I didn't have The Office on that service and the Superfan episodes, which again, I highly recommend the Superfan episodes. There's so much fun cut content that like can change the dynamic of the entire episode. But like, literally right now, it's just because of The Office. If it didn't have The Office, I don't know if I'd even have this streaming service. But then because it does have The Office, well, now I get to watch St. Denis Medical. Cool. Is Parks and Rec only on Peacock now? I guess it probably got moved off of services just like The Office did. I swore it was on Hulu, but is it off of Hulu now? There's so many. The changes occur on like a daily at this point, and like how The Expanse is now leaving Amazon Prime and it's an Amazon Prime show. Like, I don't know. Like, streaming services are dumb, man. So I don't know if I've talked about it much. The this looks like a pirate's hat now. I don't even know what I'm doing. Why am I drawing the hat even at all? This is needless detail when I said I want to go quicker and focus on the human body. Interior Chinatown. Speaking of Hulu, that is a show that is pretty good. I love the comedian, the Asian guy. I don't remember his name off the top of my hand, but I really enjoy him as an actor, and like when I've heard him talk and stuff in public and stuff, he just seems like a fun guy too in general. It's that one, and then I cannot remember the girl Quake from that one show, Agents of Shield, Agent Coulson. But it has Quake in there, so it's got like good enough characters. And it's one of those shows where I still kind of don't understand what's happening in a good way. Like, girlfriend and I still watch that show and are like, so what's going on? What do you think is happening? Like, in a good way. They're building like a cool mystery to it, which is nice. So I made her, so for the sake of the idea of not making them feel too buff, I wonder if we can liquefy the hell out of this, because I did make her upper body really real thick. And the whole point was I was trying to get away from being like overly muscly. Really, again, trying to push the anatomy, so you can easily push it with the good old liquefy. Liquefy. Okay. I think we can call this quick pose. Not a quick pose anymore. We can call this one done. I'm done looking at it. We'll draw like a little hint of where the arm's going there, just so we've got something. Cool. Look at that. Wowzers, we did a thing. Crank that down in size a little bit. Throw her over here. And we're done. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Rectify. That's I couldn't think of what my brain when I say liquefy, it does always remind me of something, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Do we got we get an audio clip of that? Hold on, let's see. Yeah. That's it. You were inside my brainscape. I couldn't think of what it was when I was saying, like, for the past like month, as I've been using the liquefy on stream so much, I couldn't think of what it was that it was reminding me of. Boom. Good old Tron legacy. Now we've got, was it Jared Leto Tron coming up? Oh, Jared Leto. We'll feel about that. Yeah, it is funny how some of those things like are just like stuck in our mindscape. Like you hear a thing or say a thing and it's like, oh no, this is all I think about now. Like that is the only thing. For me, unfortunately, it's basically 90% office quotes that like somebody says something and my brain goes, oh, the office, you say. And like, no, I didn't. I was like, but you did. You just don't know it yet. Okay, so this one is just the entire movie. You're like, excuse me, sir, can you stop? And you're like, what? I'm just quoting the movie. Like, yeah, we just asked what you wanted for coffee. We're a Starbucks. Can you stop quoting Tron Legacy, please? All right, so again, another one where he doesn't really push the contrapposto much, right? He does stuff pretty stable, which is interesting. It's if we look at the shoulders. Oh my goodness, sorry. If we look at the shoulders to the hips here, let's pop it. Boop. So shoulders to hips, really not big difference, right? It's just a slight angle, very slight angle, and then but a relatively strong hip. So the hip is still cutting high to low from left to right, right? But the shoulder is like low to high by tiny margin. So it is interesting. I wonder if that adds to the strength of his images, that it's more stable, right? So there's more stability in strength. So because he does more flatter shoulders as opposed to the twist of the hips, I wonder if that now in retrospect, looking at these images, helps solidify the strength feeling, right? That the femininity is tilted hips, but the strength of the pose then is shown off in the character by the stability of the shoulders, right? Because if we look at all of these, he is not one to really do extreme shoulder angles. You know what I mean? Like perspective between them. But he definitely still leans into the curvature of hips, right? Interesting. again, like I said, I just want to be breaking down all these shapes and see what he's thinking. That might not be what he's thinking. He'd watch us and be like, you idiot. That is not at all what I do. Man, every time I switch between monitors or I minimize stuff, because my background, oops, is literally just Marvel Rivals, it's hard not to always want to play this damn game. Like every time I turn on my computer, I'm like, oh, Marvel Rivals, am I right? That sounds good right now. I could rank up. I could play some. I could be some Doctor Strange right now. And for those wondering, the other monitor that I'm looking at right now, the background is the Marvel vs. Capcom, the new collection. So just cool art and cool video game stuff everywhere. Everywhere I look. Okay, so this one is not too extreme of a pose or much going on at all. But again, if we look, that same tenant that I talked about that he really sticks with, right? He's got, we'll draw the head, right? We'll start with the head. So she's just looking her usual 80s anime energy, right? Cool. Smile, nose, big eyes. Super worth blocking in. But so her head comes down at a slight curve. And like we said, her shoulders ever so slightly from low to high, right? Ever so slightly. But again, if we look at her chest is one big circle, right? That's a little big compared to her head shape, her head size. So a big circle. And then her hips, her waist, just a tube. Just a thin tube to break that lat shape and start the ribs into the abs. And then again, her hips. So again, if this circle is a little more geared this way, this circle is a little following that curve, but a little bit of hip to the left again. So a lot of these shapes start the same, right? This dumbbell approach. Still really broad shoulders that he does on his females. Really, again, strong, stable shoulders is what he seems to work with a lot. So we see the front of the delt here. And then the breasts are generally kind of just the same. It's interesting because the breasts don't usually stick out super drastically the way he models. He decides the shapes, but it contours the rest of the body pretty well, right? Because the curve of the lat is usually pretty visible that he does, right? So we've got a curve here, a curve here. Like the curve of the lat is what he uses to complement the curve of the breast without making the breast, well, I mean, they're still large, but like without like making them break the bounds and be like they're like flopping all over the damn place. Like they're just, the curves of the other parts of the body help sell the curves of the chest. Which, as someone who struggles drawing like this region a little bit at times, I appreciate this approach. And again, just following this curve, the ribs, right? The ribs curve in and kind of keep curving down into this tube. Because again, like we said, hard with soft is how he handles the arms, which I appreciate. They're hard angles with a little bit of a soft edge. So they still have like a softer feminine feel, but still like, hey, I could kick your ass if I wanted to, right? I love me a good shoulder. Oh, that looks weird. So again, not exactly trying to draw exactly how he draws things, but just getting this energy. And case in point here, this is not quite looking the same. But let's accentuate that hip a little bit more. And the forearm was looking kind of weird. Do not feel like drawing the hand, but we can block in a roundabout of how this hand is, right? So we get the energy. And then her hips, actually, like we said, he does a good job of, like, especially with this character, he gives her really large stuff hanging on the sides. So without making her hips even super big, he stresses the thin nature of the waist then by giving this extra oomph of stuff around her lower portion. And also just fits the energy of like a super, not mechanic, but like, you know, that kind of vibe that this character goes for. So we don't see the groin area, but we can kind of understand what it would look like. So we'll kind of block in just a little bit. So this leg would be more forward. Actually, I think this leg would end up, it looks like he'd be having her leg, like this leg end up crossing forward a little bit, kind of opposite, right? So if your right shoulder is sticking out a little bit, then you might be twisting your hips a little bit. So your left leg is actually the one protruding forward more. Again, not super necessary for what we're trying to do, but picturing the larger image at hand of what the shape would be, right? So very similar then to this one, basically, but just a little bit twisted of where the hips are positioned. Oops. That's a real big. So but then the equipment would be hanging. Sure. Cool. Shoulder feels a little large. No? Or arm entirely feels a little big for her body. Boop. Good enough. And then the shoulder still goes out this way. Same hands on the hips. And then she's got even like, man, there's like pockets on pockets on pockets. It's like in the 90s when it's like, what if the superhero now had extra pockets on it? Like 90s X-Men with like, what if for some reason Scott has like pockets on his chest and pockets on his waist and bags on this and that? Like, I don't think, as someone who has read a good amount of comics and watched a good amount of cartoons, I don't think I've ever seen at any point any of the X-Men with all of their pockets and satchels and weird design elements that Jim Lee basically said they needed to have, which looked amazing. But like, they weren't shoving stuff in there. What was in it? Nothing. There was nothing in those pockets. That would be funny then if in X-Men 97 they actually do showcase, like, they actually utilize it. Like, oh, Scott pulled out a Cliff Bar He needed his protein, like something. Like what do they got in those pockets? What are they hiding that they need so many of them? Are they hiding their Nintendo Switches? They've got Joy-Cons in each pocket, and then the big pouch has the screen. So, in between doing stuff, they're able to quickly play some Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Okay. Oopsies, what's going on with my phone here? One sec. Okay. So yeah, as usual, this is not looking like what David drew, but I do enjoy the breakdown here because it makes sense, right? The logic makes sense of having these shapes, this dumbbell approach that I'm going to coin my own way now. This is my dumbbell approach. I've learned as a fitness nerd, I'm gonna call it the dumbbell. Which that's a whole other story. No, it's not lewd enough. That is for sure. These are a little more tame. But I'm learning the tools that the lewd artists employ, right? Then I'll be cool. Which, speaking of the dumbbell approach, interesting story. Not crazy story, but interesting story that got me a little rough, right? I was a little annoyed the other day. So, my gym, I used to go to an LA Fitness. I don't like LA Fitness that much, but it is what it is. I used to go to the LA Fitness where I moved to be near that LA Fitness. That LA Fitness closed. I should make a squirrel girl. Honestly, that would be a good one to do next. When I've got, like, when I'm doing these studies, I think maybe I should do a squirrel girl. I wanted to do with a Street Fighter, but I think I will do squirrel girl. Now that you said that, I love her design in the new game. But so I hate LA Fitness, but they closed down, and I was like, I don't like this. So I found an export, which was by our new house, and they're open 24 hours. Fantastic. Well, LA Fitness bought that export, hours changed, yada, yada, yada. Tale as old as time, right? Mega corporation buys smaller to kill them. And I was worried that they would go under, that they would do something and kind of like get rid of export. Well, during the holidays, I don't go to the gym as much because I'm immunocompromised. I get sick too often. There's way too many germs around the winter time here in Chicago, especially with how cold it is, and people visiting others for the holidays, right? So I steer clear of the gym sometimes. And so I haven't been to the gym since Thanksgiving. Okay. So that's a long time. So I go 5 days a week. If not, well, usually I go 6 days a week, but now the gym's not open on the weekends, a whole other story. I go 6 days a week. So not going since Thanksgiving is a long time for me. Granted, I've got all my equipment here. I do home workouts still. I didn't stop working out. I just stopped going to that gym. Well, lo and behold, my buddy messaged the one day right before New Year's that, oh, my last day at the one export by us that we would go to. And I was like, wait, are you changing gyms finally? Or did they close? What are you talking about? He's like, nah, man, they're closed. They're closing down. So they closed down my favorite little gym, and I didn't even get to go to it one last time. Very disheartening. But so there was another location that I personally did not like. And that location was a much bigger one. And it feels like I've been to a lot of gyms in my life, and this is one of my least favorite gym energies. Like the way it's set up, the building, the staff in general. Like I just didn't like it, but I had been to it a handful of times because I could, and depending on the timing and where I was, I would go to that gym instead. Well, now that's the only gym that we can go to. Like, there's no other one around within stone's throw for us to go to that's not going to like break the bank and be way too long to go to. So unfortunately, that is now going to be our normal gym. And I finally decided to get back in the swing now after the holidays here, after the New Year's. Again, my idea is once people stop being gross and sick, right? People are still going to be sick, but I feel like it's less likely once like New Year's passes and stuff. So I went to this gym for the first time now this year on Tuesday. I go on Tuesday, and I'm a bike person. I love using the stationary bike. I always use the stationary bike, and then I take some pre-workout, and then I keep kicking, and then I get my heart rate up, and then I lift heavy, okay? Simple moves. However, this gym has like the worst bikes you've ever seen. They're like absolute doo-doo water bikes. I hate them. However, in the one room, they have the nice big fan bikes, the ones where it's like you work your arms too, and it's like a giant, huge resistance. I really like them. And so every time I'd been to that gym, I would go into that little room and utilize those bikes. So naturally, when I went the first time Tuesday back at it, I went in that room and I was biking. And it is busy as all living heck at that gym now, because all the other gyms are closed in the area, and this is like the only one, right? And so it's so many people, plus you've got New Year's, right? New Year's, everybody is starting to go to the gym, which I'm cool with. You know, I respect people trying, and I hope they stick with it. But it's busy as hell. So I am in that room doing my biking. And keep in mind, there's a sign on the door that says, do not use when class is in session. And that's a normal thing in a lot of gyms, right? When they're doing a class in the room, like the certain rooms, don't go in there. But otherwise, it's free game, right? I'm in there, and then out of nowhere, after I get off the bike, right? I've been in there for like half hour. I get off the bike, and I'm doing like a couple free weight things in there just for the time being, and I was going to move out to the main room and, you know, do the actual machines and bigger workouts, but like just trying to warm up still in there. And you know when you hear something in the distance kind of, but you don't like, it doesn't click, right? You hear somebody say something, you think it's a thing, like you don't really acknowledge it. I thought it was one of my buddies at the gym, because I knew he was there that day, and I thought he had just popped in the room and he was just going to chill and talk for a little bit. I look over the corner of my eye, and it's this guy, and he's just like doing this, like real pissed off, super negative energy, right? And he's just gives me this look, and I was like, I pull off, you know, obviously I have big headphones, don't do earbuds. So visibly have headphones on, not even like earbuds where you can't tell sometimes. Pull down my headphones, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, you need to get out. And I was like, what? He's like, you need to get out of here. This is for trainers only. And I was like, the sign says you can't use when class is in session. I don't think there's a class going on. He's like, no, you need to get out. And I was like, is that a new thing? Because you know, now that LA Fitness, that's why I asked. I was like, is this a new thing? Because I've been in here many times before. He's like, no, always been this way. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, it was such aggressive, negative energy, right? So there are so many ways that you can handle customer service stuff. And it bothers me so much when people don't understand the basics of how to be essentially a good human being. But like, to paint a picture, to be a dick, I guess, this guy is like, you know, those guys who are jacked as all hell, but if they weren't jacked, they'd be hideous because they've got those like real wonky faces. He's this hideous dude, but like grossly jacked to a weird extent. And he's just aggressively standing there. And I was like, I didn't know how to even, you know, like when you're thrown off, you're not expecting a thing. And so I was just like, what the fuck? Like, why is this guy like such negative energy? I can't even like relate how shitty the energy was, right? That he was putting out into the world. And then he just stood there holding the door, just staring at me to get out. He's like, you got the whole gym, man. Get out of here. And I was like, holy shit. And so I tried to at least spark up conversation because that's me. I want to at least try and like diffuse a situation and be like, oh, positive energy, different vibes. You know what I mean? I was like, hey, do you know whatever happened to the Bolingbrook, the one other location? I was like, do you know what happened to their bikes? Because the main reason I come in here is because I really like these bikes, right? They're not anywhere else in the gym. They're just in this room. He's like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, I don't know. Some stuff came from that. I don't even know. It doesn't matter. And I was just like, and so I walked out of the room with him just standing there holding the door, giving me like a death stare. And then he like slams the door behind me and immediately locks it. And then goes and he continues to go work out himself. What the F was that interaction? Like, that was my first interaction back at this gym that I was not looking forward to going to because I never enjoyed my time at this gym. I feel like it's a crappy gym and the people there before were very negative. And then my first time back now after the holidays, knowing full well, unfortunately, this is my new normal, right? This is my new home gym. I was just like, cool. This douchebag energy is exactly what I wanted. Like, it's so weird going to the gym as someone who's been going regularly to the gym for the past like 15 years of his life now. There's such a weird mix of energy that you can either have people that are the most understanding and sweet people you've ever met. Like, I know I've met so many people that are like giant teddy bear of men or women, right? They look like they could just, crush a watermelon by looking at it even, right? Like these massively strong people, but they're the most supportive and kind and you can, hey man, you want to work in? Oh, hey, this, always open and super nice. Or you get these entitled douchebags that feel like because they are in shape, they are better people. And it's like, there's such a weird mix. And I like to imagine it's usually for the better. Like, I've run into a lot of nice people. I've met a lot of friends going to the gym now over the years. But like, I'm always the first one, right? When I go to the gym, before the holidays, there was an individual. He clearly was not a regular gym goer, right? I had never seen him before. Physically, you could tell he had not, he was trying to get into shape, right? And he was standing at one machine. And this is like a prime example. I do this all the time. It's a fine balance, but like he looked confused, right? And if you don't know what you're doing at the gym, it's like, why even do it? Because like you're not going to get a good workout. So you better know what you're doing. And so I'm always the first one. If somebody looks like they need help, I try and be like, hey, you good? Do you need help? Like always. Not as much with females, because that's just unfortunately the nature of the beast, how there's a different stigma, unfortunately. If my girlfriend is there, luckily we can do that because I feel like it's a different energy when you're with another female and you are like, hey, do you need help? Like that has a different energy. But so mainly with males, I do this, which is sexist, I suppose, in its own right. But I'm always the first one to ask. And so this dude had no clue how to use the one machine. And it's an awkward machine if you've never used it before, right? There's a ton of machines that don't really make sense if you've not done them. And so I asked him, I was like, hey man, you good? Have you used that? You're like, do you need any help? And he's like, I don't know what I'm looking at. And I was like, hey, no problem. So I pulled off my headphones entirely and I explained really quickly how to use the machine, what you should be feeling, right? And how you should be feeling it. And the safety mechanism to it, right? Because that's the biggest thing is being safe, especially at the gym, right? And he was super appreciative. And that was that. That was it. That's all. That was it. And that ended that interaction. And he was very happy. He expressed gratitude. And our lives went on, right? It took me 2 minutes. And I made someone have a better interaction in the gym. That's all it takes. Sometimes all it takes is a damn smile, right? People can look intimidating at the gym. Give them a smile. Just be friendly. Like, I can't tell you how far simple things like that can go, especially in that environment. And there's times where I've helped people or taught, I see somebody struggling, I give them help with something, and then I never talk to them again. But I see them all the time at the gym, and you give them that nod, they give you a smile, and there's that little bit of acknowledgement, and that's all it takes. And so when I go to a gym and you've got this negative, like very macho energy coming from these, I mean, sometimes it's women, but usually, unfortunately, it's men 90% of the time, if not 98% of the time, honestly. That like, what are you doing? What's happening in your life, friendo? That like this is the energy you want to put out in the world, right? Like this, you woke up today and you're like, this is the energy I want people to feel. Like nobody wants to feel that energy, so why are you putting it out there? I know that was a long rant. I get it. It really grinds my gears. Like, just be a nice person, because the end result of that, now I don't like that person, right? I have a negative energy about that interaction. I'm talking about it negatively because I didn't like it, right? And there's 1,000 ways you could have handled that, right? He could have come in and been like, "Hey man, unfortunately this room's dedicated just for personal training." And if I said something like about the sign on the door, he could have been like, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, that's just the sign we put up on the door, but it means like, unfortunately, we do just keep this door locked. I know the sign's a little misleading, but if you don't mind, man, unfortunately, we can't have people in here if you're not with a trainer. That's just the rules. Okay. Not, you can't be in here. Get out. I, I don't care. Get out. Like, those are very different energies you're putting out into the world. Very different. And the way I would feel and the way any other human would feel is so much different given the better one, right? Like you walk away from an interaction just being like, oh, okay, that's lame. It must just be every time I've been in this gym for whatever reason, it's been unlocked, right? And that's been because I usually go later. So maybe it was just because it's later, it's been generally unlocked. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles, but I'm not supposed to be in there. Cool, I get it. But you don't gotta be a dick about it, right? It's not like I was like maliciously doing anything. I was riding a bike, just riding a bike and then lifting free weights. It was 25-pound free weights. Just standing there doing a couple little like warm ups. That's it. Moral of the story: just be a good person. Like, just don't be a dick. Apparently, that's much harder to do than I like to think it is. Like, I find it pretty easy. You just be nice. But apparently that's not as possible with a lot of people, which is a shame. So if you're watching, don't be a dick today to anybody. Be nice. Smile to somebody. Do bring good into this world. Please. Okay, well, I've been noodling on this way too long as I was just vamping about my gym etiquette story. But yeah, I don't think we need to do more here. But we get the idea of this then, right? Again, not exactly the way he drew it. Yeah, it's weird when people comment and try and, make sure they do better, right? And then they don't understand that, somebody knows a little more than them and they could just learn from them instead of complaining. Jerks, am I right? Gasp. Who knows? What time is it? I don't know. I've been cruising. Sometimes on these, yeah, it's already 12:40. So you know what that means. Every hour on the hour, I get to have a little bit of chocolate. Otherwise, I will be fading too fast. And here we go. My last dove. and then protein at 2 o'clock. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to going to that gym again now. Because now, I don't know. I've been debating other gyms, but other gyms are more pricey. They're further. I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay. Well, I noodled this a little bit more, but breaking down her shapes like we talked about, it's pretty clear the dumbbell method that got me talking about the gym. That looks as we said, right? Just the dumbbell. We've got circle, tube, and circle. That's it. I can't stay home and work on my cookie pooch. Like, so doing home workouts, it gets to the point because I don't have a home gym, right? I have a home shit ton of equipment everywhere kind of thing, right? I don't have a gym, like a dedicated room. Got a lot of equipment in the basement. And then we have like all of our free weights are under the master bedroom, under the bed there. We have a king size bed. And so like the entirety, the one side by my girlfriend's side is just slippers because she has a bunch of different slippers she'll just slide on. And so they stay on that side of the bed underneath. And then from the middle of the bed to my side is just weights. It's just dumbbells and kettlebells. And so I have to pull them all out. And then I just work out in the bedroom where there's a mirror. And then I have my bike in the basement. Which is fine for a little bit. But when you do it, like if I did it once a week, totally fine, right? Because I'm probably not going to use this gym on the weekends because their hours suck. So maybe Saturday nights I'll work out at home still. But the energy is so different when I don't leave the house to go to the gym, right? Because things don't feel like when you go do a thing, right? Like even drawing, I'm sitting here with a purpose to draw. Like this is the goal is to draw. And so I'm more productive doing it here. Well, I talk a lot, which things get distracting. But like I sit and I talk, but I'm drawing. If I were to go do that downstairs, I might get distracted and pull up something on I'll pull up Reddit, I'll pull up YouTube, I'll be doing something and I'll get distracted. Whereas that's kind of the gym energy too, where if I'm at home, I'm gonna get distracted. And I'm not gonna, like it's not gonna hit the same. And that's kind of how it progressed. Like the first couple weeks I was enjoying it because I was getting back to like really simple, basic routine of like nothing crazy, not doing any crazy moves, but just sticking to like, keep it simple. And it's nice to get back to the basics sometimes when it comes to fitness or anything. But after the first like couple weeks, I realized my energy levels were just not there. Like I wasn't able to push as hard. My heart rate didn't stay up as much. I've got my, my little Fitbit tells me my heart rate. And it was like, I've got a really low resting heart rate. My resting heart rate's around 60. And so like even my active working out here at home was like maybe I guess, but I'm doing it with a purpose of like the stream. Like, do you know what I mean? Like there's something extra because if I did go downstairs and I didn't have this purpose, it's easy to get distracted, right? So I get what you're saying that like you could, it is a mindset 100%. But at the end of the day too, it's, oh gosh, no, I don't want to be that person ever. Like at least not at the gym. Like no way. And then streaming workouts at home, I don't have, it's just free weight stuff. So it's not, I don't know, it's boring. But like that's the thing too, is like the equipment is different. Like I can only do so much with the free weights where I feel a lot more comfortable with other things. And so, yeah, I mean, I could, I guess, but that's not a vibe I feel like doing. But something along with the free weights because I have my injuries, right, with my collarbone and my shoulder. sometimes I need, like, I've not been able to comfortably work my pecs, like my chest. I can't do free weights that much with my chest because I have those issues with my collarbone so badly that I need structured machines that keep form better, because when I have variability in form, my collarbone sometimes locks up really bad. It still locks up even when I'm doing, more structured stuff. But unfortunately, because of my physical injuries over the years, I kind of need certain things. Like, I have not been able to work my pecs since Thanksgiving then. Like, because if I do push-ups, my collarbone locks up nowadays. And if I do any sort of weighted exercise, like a press, if I have any faltering, my collarbone will just lock up. Whereas at least at the gym, I can use machines that are tailor-made for my movement, right? And I can lock in a different way. Yeah, I've tried different things. The collarbone is actually like a physical break, though, unfortunately. So I've been to specialists in the past, like collarbone specialists. Like, there's only a handful in the world, in the U.S., and I went to one, I remember, and I've seen a couple. It's not just his only opinion I've gotten, but it's the collarbone thing is unfortunately not necessarily a chiropractic fix. It is a structural break in my body that is now the way it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's because the SC joint is completely borked, and it's not only scar tissue, but it ripped that joint entirely. So it's scar tissue and misplaced the whole spot. Yeah. So surgery is pretty much, I can stretch and do, like, I know my things that I can do at home that make it feel less shitty at times, right? But it's putting band-aids on the thing that really, isn't going to help in the long run, but it is what it is. But yeah, so going to the gym, I kind of need that physical help, right? Like that little bit of assistance in form. And to the point where I was at home, like literally when I'm talking about home workouts, I kid you not. So in the winter, I keep a light beard, right? So normally I shave off my face entirely once a week. Usually it's like every Thursday, I just shave my face. And then I let it grow. I keep the stubble look. And then it's like my way of looking like a little different throughout the week because my beard grows in pretty quick. But lately with the winter, it's so cold. In the winter, I'll leave the beard light, right? And I just trim it, tighten it up. Every week then, once a week, because I'm in my bedroom. I'm in the master bedroom. And that's where the master bath is, obviously, then too. Those workouts where I would just trim up my beard in between sets of doing stuff. And that takes you out so mentally where you're like, oh, I'm just trimming up my beard. I do between heavy sets, I'll do a 3-minute rest period, right? And I'll be like, okay, 3 minutes, I'll get the right side of my face done. And then I'll trim up the cheek a little. And I'll go back and I'll work out more. And then 15 minutes later, I'll be like, okay, I got a 3-minute downtime. I'm going to go to the other side of my face. Like, it's hard when your brain is just like, yeah, we can do these stupid in-between things that I can be efficient with my time, when reality is you're just making the thing you're doing less effective then. Boy. So I'm looking right now. Hold on. We established we can screen grab, right? Hold on. Snipping tool. So right now, I actually want to bring up a point. Go full screening this one. So we're going to take a quick grab of this. So there is a point on the human body when we're dealing with skin that I've talked about before. I cannot remember the name of it, unfortunately, at the moment. But it's when you have shadows on the human form, skin has what we reflect on skin differently, right? So like shadows on a cloth is going to have a different energy than shadows on skin. And it's killing me that I cannot remember the name, but it's the idea that when you go from a normal skin tone to a shadowed space, you have what's like a terminator in between. And it's a nice warm color, generally, to make the skin feel alive. So when you draw non-living material, it's okay that you have like a cold shadow, and that's fine. But if we look, he does it really well where he literally it's the thinnest line you'll see, but if you look at the skin, it looks good. And there's a reason it looks good. It's using my keyboard at this angle is weird. It's hard once we zoom in, okay? The quality of the image isn't quite there. But if we look at her face, oh, I forgot to switch, sorry. If we look at her face, do we see right here how thin this line is? There's a thin little warm line that leads into the shadow. So it's like you draw the shadow and you have this thin, it's super hard to see in this quality. And I'm sure the stream's kind of killing it too. But normally, like, I end up doing like a little thicker of a line and I'll blur it or I'll do this or that. But it's really interesting to see how he does it in like the thinnest of lines in his style. Like you almost don't even notice it. Yeah, it's just this slight reddish pink. And that's usually what you want to do, right? That's just how the outline of the skin. Oop, I just drew a nipple on because I realized I'm in the snipping tool. But it's this little thin line. So like when I do stuff, I usually make it thicker, like I said, and it doesn't look as good. I feel like I don't like it. Whereas I really like the way with his 80s, 90s anime feel that he does this really, really, really thin line, almost imperceptible when you're looking at it from normal view, right? But when you break it down, you can see that. I just noticed it as I was just looking at this one last time. Definitely something to note as I'm just kind of pulling things from everybody's style. But yeah, so back to the actual drawing at hand. We like I was breaking down, I was saying that, right, it'll look cold. It's one of those things where it doesn't seem like a lot, but you can mess up skin so quickly. And it's these little things that make things feel like when you look at like amateur skin versus like a professional skin, one usually feels more dead than the other. And it's these little things like that color that makes things just feel more alive. Like the skin is more glowing and natural. So it's those little things go a long ass way. And the little thing here even being like I'm talking about here, that like understanding the shapes, that like literally when we looked at all of these shapes now, right? Oh no. I need to change my nib on this thing. It's getting pretty rough. After this, I'm going to have to change it after stream, probably do a new one. Everything is tube with a circle on it, right? This first drawing was rough, but that's fine. The idea is still there. This was me warming up to get the idea still. But again, all of his drawings really accentuate the human form with just these two shapes, really, right? Which summarize it too. There's always like the idea that, like we talked about before, like the flour sack, but like almost everything in life is kind of a bean shape. Like most like natural forms have like long and more like cohesive piece and then some sort of curve to balance, right? And that's kind of this long and then a little bean, right? Everything's a bean. But I feel like the dumbbell to me makes more sense as I'm breaking it down. The idea that you've got like a weight, a thing, a tube in between, and a weight, because that's what causes these junction points that make the lats into the waist intriguing to look at, right? Or the lats into, or the waist into the hips, right? Those harder edges help sell like the femininity. And when I say dumbbell, obviously I don't like new dumbbells are very hard edge. I'm talking about old school dumbbell, like strong man at the circus kind of dumbbell, you know, like those old fun dumbbells that logistically didn't really, like, they rolling all over the place. Okay, so we've got another one drawn there. So what time did we say it is? It's almost 1 o'clock, right? So it is 12:53, and I'm trying really hard to stick to my my timelines. So that means I got 40 minutes. So we can do a little more. Get back to the normal pen. I had a few more drawings of his that I wanted to still study, right? To break down the shapes. And it looks like, again, the same dumbbell energy among all of them, right? So this one's definitely a little different, and we don't even really see what's going on because she's got this long rifle here. But I think this will be an interesting one then to peep at as well, because it's still that same energy, right? So she's got her head up top, as usually we do. And then she's got her chest is pushed forward, right? She's a very strong S shape, right? Very strong curve. But so her chest is a big circle. And then we have the handle, right, of the dumbbell. And then her butt is another circle. So if we notice, what's interesting, he makes this character, she feels really slender, right? Compared to this one, right? This one felt more solid and strong, where this girl has a much slender feel. And so it looks like the idea is the same then, right? We still keep the same dumbbell shape, but all we do is instead of having them more rounded squares, we just make them, or rounded circles, just kind of really elongate and make them more ovals, right? But the idea is the same, that we just have these three connecting shapes that end up building the main thing. And again, as I've noted, I can't say it enough, I'm not trying to draw the character. I'm not drawing what he drew. I'm drawing the thought process behind what he drew. I'm not trying to make it a one-to-one drawing. I'm just getting the energy out of it. So this is, I like the hairstyle of this character. It's pretty weird. I don't know why I'm doing that. Anyway. So if we look at, again, he does a lot of curves with still a little bit of hard edge. So I like to throw in the neck a little bit early just to kind of understand where I'm looking at the rest of the form. So his neck, or her neck, is in there now. Good. And then we can start blocking. So the neck will probably change still, but and everything with this character then, if we notice, is kind of elongated a little bit more, just like the ovals. So we take that same idea and kind of like marry it throughout the whole thing is what he does. So if it's longer, everything kind of is longer to complement that form, right? We don't really see much of like a twist in her body. We just see like the shoulder. Honestly, the breasts are kind of in a weird, like, I don't even know how her chest is twisting, to be honest, because it almost looks like you're going from, like, if this is the center line, it's kind of going like this, and then, like, you know, like almost 3/4, and then down into profile view. Because we don't really see much else in way of hips. We just see like her one butt cheek. But still a thick bottom, right? So he plays with the idea of that thin waist by hitting with this real strong curve there. Again, not trying to draw her exactly. I know this is not quite what she looks like, but just trying to understand how he uses these shapes to sell the form. So I know Lincoln Prime, you use your Procreate too, I believe. One tool that I didn't realize, it might not help you in any way, shape, or form because it's just a quick little shortcut that I never realized. I've been using this software for God knows how long, however many years. If you notice, I made these. All that is it, I'm just looking if you're not seeing the top left. It's just the brush sizes. So you can actually save the brush sizes. So you don't have to like scrub through each time if you want to make it bigger or smaller, and it'll lock in. So like you literally just tap where you wanted it, hit the, right here it's a negative, but like if I was here, you just hit the positive sign, right? And it saves that percentage then. So you just have to tap it instead of being like, oh, okay, and then it keeps it more consistent, right? It totally, yeah, it's a simple thing, and it saves per brush. So like this is my sketch brush that I use, but then if I were to switch to like my fill brush, they're gone because each brush saves its own percentages. And so you can do that with, you know, the size. So you just tap it. So like if you tap on the, so what I'm doing is I'm tapping on the light gray, like the slider, you tap on it, and then it's this plus sign. And then now it's there. It's that little dot that you just tap, and then it becomes that size. So you can just lock in the percentages that you want. And then if you don't like it, boop, negative sign and it's gone. And like I said, it saves per brush. So for my sketch brush in particular, sometimes I like really thin, right? And then when I do bigger lines, I like to have like a thicker pencil. But then when I'm doing like inner sketch, I like to keep it consistent at about here, right? So it's perfect to be able to bounce between. Same with my eraser, right? When I'm working with an eraser, I either want a really big one, right, to do a mass erase, a little bit more finer, or sometimes I want it really little to get granular, right, to get little bits. And instead of always fiddling, you know, yeah, I was saying earlier, I literally just saw that last week. I was watching somebody else use Procreate, and I saw those little tabs. And I was like, what in the hell am I looking at? How is he switching between them so easily? And I didn't ask the person. I didn't care to ask. I was like, I'll just figure it out myself. And I literally just tapped it, and I was like, there's literally a plus sign. How did my brain never? I've used this software how much? I never questioned what this plus sign meant. Not once. Like, it made me feel like the biggest idiot. Like, how did I not? Okay, well, I know now, and that's all that matters. But yeah, I felt real dumb. But yeah, so here, looking at this, again, my super rough blocking is proportionally a little off. That's okay. Just kind of half-ass a little tweak here. So it's gonna be messy, and that's fine. See right there, I was like, nah, I want my big eraser. Give me the bigums. All right, cool. Have a good rest of your workday, man. Thanks for stopping by. So again, I'm just really focusing here on like the shapes here. Whoa. Sounds like somebody's home. I'm gonna move the door a little bit. Okay, sorry. But no, so focusing on these curves again, right? So we have the big circle, the tube, and the big circle. And I'm just trying to refine these shapes here. Again, not drawing exactly how he's drawn it, just trying to understand. And so if we really focus, we can break down all of the shapes in almost the exact same way. And that really helps. So like right here, we don't see what's going on, right? There's a big rifle there. I'm not drawing the gun. The gun is not what we're learning today. We're not learning to draw guns. That's another thing that is fine to do, but you know, I don't care right now. That's not my goal. And so, like we talked about too, what he does is interesting in that he doesn't always draw the breasts super like overhanging any shapes or anything like that, right? But what he does is usually he uses the shapes around to complement. And so this is another prime example, right? So here is her lat, her back of her back, right? So her lat curves around and it's almost the exact same curve as the breast, right? So that's what I want to focus on is not necessarily like, yeah, this is a different size. That's fine. But that curve is what I'm trying to sell. And that really helps look at the breast then. So without accentuating this boob, the form is still accentuated because it's complemented by that. So you can, again, always using the space around and not just the thing. So I've talked about that so many times on stream that like everything else is relative to the other piece. So you can't just assume that like, oh, it's because this or this or this. Stop focusing on the thing itself, right? The breast shape isn't just the breast shape. It's this shape. It's the shape that connects to it. It's all the surrounding pieces. Just like the shoulder isn't the shoulder. The shoulder exists in space with the traps and the neck and the triceps and the bicep, right? So everything is all connected. And so don't just focus on the piece that is in question, because then you get lost, right? And you're like, why can't I fix this? Because there's so many other pieces. Maybe don't fix the shoulder, maybe fix the tricep, maybe fix the neck, maybe fix this. And that's what makes the shoulder look better then. I don't know why I can't get the curve that I want right now. I think it's just I've been sitting here drawing too much and my body's like a little cramping up, but like either way. So we've got her shoulder shape in there. One thing to note that I usually talk about, I'm not like seeing it exactly here, but what happens with the neckline, imagine you're using this curve, okay? So I'll erase it just so we can illustrate a point. So usually when you're at like this angle, this back of the neck is fine, but the curve of this neck, so I'm going to show you like a weird looking curve, right? That doesn't look right. It looks really stupid. Do you know why it looks stupid? Because it doesn't flow. But let's say we just do like a straight line too. And then we do something like that. That also looks stupid. Because there is a connection point that I feel like a lot of people overlook. And everything is fluid with the body, right? Like we said, everything's interconnected. So if everything's interconnected, we're looking at her ribs right here. Obviously, the breast sits on top of the ribs. The breast isn't like an actual piece of anatomy in terms of like a bony structure or anything. It's just fat sitting on top, more or less. So if the curve of this waist goes into the ribs and comes this way, essentially, right? This is the shape. Imagine this big oval that we have here. This neck will conform to that. So you want that neck to go into that position, more or less. You don't want to go all the way because that's going to look weird. No one's neck. We're not working with giraffes over here. But following a similar curve so that in your head that lines up, right? So this curve should close enough line up to this connection of a curve. And that will help sell the way the neck is actually sitting, in the space. So again, simple things. And I'm not saying like this isn't exactly a thing that this person does. That's just a general tip of the human anatomy, not just what David does. But it looks like he also does a similar thing, and it's really illustrated in his picture there because it's the suit even. Oh my gosh, eraser. The suit itself continues down that form, right? So imagine somebody's like in a onesie, like not a onesie, like a one piece thing like that. And it usually will follow that curve again with anatomy, with the human body, with, poses and perspective and proportions. That's not in every, there's no one size fits all, but there is a general rule of thumb that you can work with that will help you sell the ideas. So again, we don't really see what's going on here, but we can imagine her arm. Again, we said he's following a very thin, long, thin energy for all of this character. So you need to make sure that that follows suit throughout the whole thing. So her torso is long and thin, her arms are long and thin, her neck is long and thin. Obviously, you can balance and make, push and pull those shapes a little bit here and there to, over stylize things. But at the end of the day, you really want to make sure it feels like a cohesive design still, right? And I think that's important. And it's illustrated really well with this individual. This female is very slender and she stays slender. And it does contrast, I'm sorry. David has two characters he usually draws. This is one, and the one we drew earlier was the other one. And they're a good duo then because they have similar energy, right? But one is rounder, and like one is a circle and one is an oval, right? If we were breaking down core shapes. And that helps have like quick readability between the characters that like, oh, this is the oval girl and this is the circle girl. Like your brain understands the assignment in a way and gets what you're looking at. And it reads way better when you have that simple difference in shape language. So that hand looks stupid, but again, I'm just whatever, blocking it in, and that's okay. She got a big old glove on too, but also doesn't really matter for the point we're trying to make here at all. So as we're addressing how he handles the arms, the elbows and stuff, we talked about that. Well, Wednesday we looked at super gestural drawings. David does landmark stuff a lot more, right? So we see more of the elbows, we see more of the tricep folds, we see a little bit more, but he still is, like most artists, you still have gesture to your form, right? You still have to find those ebbs and flows, and still lean in, especially with the female figure, a lot of these curves, right? And soft curves. But it's cool mixing soft curves with hard curves to make them more muscular or whatever you'd rather them be. Is 1:11. We've got about 20 more minutes to cruise along and make some stuff here. I think this illustrates the point pretty well though already. Like I don't think we need to push this shape too much more. I think we, like this is a quick and dirty way of looking at this one. And since she's so much longer and I'm not drawing her outfit at all, really, it works. But here, let me just erase stuff. So again, we can kind of see the form a little better that we've established before doing any little fixes and then moving on. So again, now once you get rid of your etchiness, sometimes you'll see like, oh, I've done that countless times where it looks okay when it's really sketchy because there's so many lines distracting you. But then the second you get rid of all that etchiness, you're like, oh, no, never mind. That doesn't make sense. That's too much. Like now that I see the direct form that I've created, you can see sometimes there's a little bit of disparity in between it, which that was a perfect instance there where that was too long and thin for the torso, right? So again, we don't need to do this. I'm just doing it for my own visual to kind of like understand where these shapes are moving in space, right? So her abs are up here. We got her a little bit there. We got some lats, sure. So she's twisting a little bit in space and then having her leg pop. So normally this is a prime example of the contour of a more gestural, but I wonder if I accentuate with a little extra curve, right? Because since his style is okay, giving a little more detail, I kind of like that, right? It's not quite what he did, or I actually don't know because there's a gun there, but playing with a little bit more of these curves because that's more of what I like to do. Working with fill stuff or Wednesday really was a struggle for me because it is so gestural and there's not enough landmark placement, whereas this style resonates with me a little more because this is kind of more naturally how I draw anyway. And so having more of, finding the way you naturally draw is important because you don't want to try and imitate somebody else's style. You want to find how to fold in their style into yours, right? Or not even their style, fold in their shape language, their thought process, their analysis of shape breakdowns and all those kind of goodies, right? I forgot that I didn't even really draw much of this arm because I kept erasing and changing the shape here. So one landmark I know usually helps for me is the collarbone. My part that's busted right above the sternoclavicular joint here is doing that little bit because it helps sell the shape and the form, right? So like we can tell if we do this, that like this is the center, right? Because that's where we know where that collarbone is for most people, unlike me who it's, a little out of place. But you immediately can kind of read the curvature of her form based on these little landmarks such as her collarbone. For the sake of having a little face in here, let's put in the nose just because I want to. Put in her nose. She's got her anime face going on. He's like the master of like simplified mouth with just a little bit of whatever that is, like the little shadow under the bottom lip, right? Again, this is just for me. This is not part of the study per se of the body. Oh, my voice is cracked. Of the body. But it helps sell the picture more. Yeah, it's funny talking as much as I do now. I normally talk a lot, right? And this is no surprise for anybody who knows me or anybody who's even been listening now for a little bit of time. Talking is something I like to do. However, talking for 3 hours straight is more on the voice than I thought it would be, right? Like, imagine you're at like a party or something like that, and you are just engaged in conversation with someone or multiple people, for so long. Sometimes when you come home from the party, your voice is like, whew, I'm tired. Like a weirdly run down energy from just speaking so much. And that's something I didn't realize that would be not a problem, but like a factor when doing all of this kind of stuff, that like I'm training my voice even to be able to talk as much as I do. Okay, so as usual, I'm getting lost in the weeds in this woman's hair, which is completely against the point of what I'm trying to do. Boop, boop. I like the way he does analyzing that then real quick. The hair, like we've talked about before, like the anime hair where it's like head and then the bang or something is like not even a real shape of hair, right? Like that. But I kind of like how he does it. So if we look, I'm just going to draw it up here. Like he has a curve like this for the hair, and the curve comes out and then goes in. But what's interesting is it almost has that energy of that anime where it gets so thin right here on that. I'm just looking at one part of the hair that he drew. It gets so thin. It almost looks like, I always joke where it's like the little kid. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you, right? But it gets kind of like the best of both worlds then, where it's like a little bit more of like the American style of usually drawing hair a little thicker mixed with that anime of almost not touching, right? Which is pretty cool. Okay, block in the arm real quick just to have an arm. again, keeping up the design of being longer and thinner is what he's got here. Nothing too crazy. He does an interesting way too with the biceps that we can look at. So he usually when your bicep is bent, right? So when your arm bends, I have my sweatshirt on so you can't really see. But like it is like your bicep is straight, but the second there's a bend, you can see the bicep activates. And so even when you're just at a neutral 90 degree like that with your elbow, the bicep is actually being activated quite a bit. And so you'll see the long head there with the tendon here kind of go down. So it's different how the bicep would look depending on how the arm is, bent based on the elbow, because the elbow is what dictates the arm's muscles, right? So however the elbow is bent, that's how the muscles are contracted or not. But in this instance, I like how he does this pretty regularly, I've noticed, with his biceps, where he has a longer insertion point like this. So the bicep usually terminates there. And like with bodybuilders, this would be like a non-ideal insertion point genetically because you don't have a full muscle mass. But he does this a lot with women, it looks like, at least the slender women, where he plays up the idea of a longer insertion point for the muscle. So you get this rather than like all the way. And I think that helps both like a little bit of femininity, sure, but it also just helps sell then for a character like this. They're longer, right? That's a longer joint. It makes more sense. It kind of plays up the idea of being a little more thin. Whereas like she has that still, if we notice here, right? She has it, but it's not quite as pronounced. And as I illustrated this, I feel like I made her pretty strong looking still. And again, that's what my takeaway with David's stuff is that his females still have this power to them that I absolutely admire. Being able to balance both strength and femininity is a hard thing to do, for me at least, with art. Oh, that's an eraser. So I don't need to draw the hand. It's fine. We get the idea of what the hand is there. Like the single finger to break the silhouette of this block in, just so we kind of know what's going on, right? Okay. I guess we could erase the inside of this just so it doesn't look so messy, just so we kind of get an idea. Boop. Again, not really drawing anything with detail, especially with these hands right now. That's not the assignment we're trying to work with. So there we go again with that curve, right? But I don't know, it's already 11:22. That took, I keep blabbing a little more. Where's there's a random line that I drew for her bicep when I was accentuating that. Yeah, those are some good studies. So to recap, I guess, so I had a couple more pulled up, but I don't need to do those right now. We can quickly see, before I sign out, then we can see here what I was talking about still. So let's switch over to the camera so we can see a little bit bigger here. The same idea applies to everything we went through, right? Today, when we're breaking down David's style, he really uses this dumbbell method that like I said, this is something I'm going to fold into my own logic and way of thinking is thinking of it as a dumbbell, in that even in these other two pictures now, we've got this strong circle, right? the tube, and then another strong circle. And he still uses what I always refer to as the contrapposto, the change in the shoulders to the hips, right? He still usually accentuates that a little bit. But like we found too, is he keeps the shoulders pretty level, and levelness in shoulders in the visual language implies strength and stability and stuff like that. So by keeping her shoulders, the female shoulders, a little more stable, that gives more strength, but then still accentuating that little bit of change in the hip, right? Same here with Psylocke, right? These shoulders, pretty stable. Left to right, barely a little bit of height variation. But then the hip, we can see this hip really dips and rises, right? We can imagine this circle here being more of an oval facing this way. So it really leans into it. So even though the shoulders are stable, that gives stability. And then the hips are angled, which give femininity. So I think that's something that he does really well of balancing those two things. But going back to our drawings from today, whoopsies, a little too big. Going back here to ours, we can see the breakdown of what I talked about. And I think this is my biggest takeaway for today. If I can find my pencil, it's gone. Don't worry, it's here somewhere. Got it. The biggest takeaway is these shapes. And I'm going to do it one more time to illustrate before I skedaddle and go eat some lunch. But this first drawing we did, absolute doo-doo water. That's okay. We were warming up and we were understanding how he did logically the shapes, right? Circle. A big circle, a big tube, and another big circle. And they balance each other, these circles, right? This feels like a nice flow, right? That's a nice flow. This drawing here, big circle around the lats. We've got a nice tube. And then another big old circle. Real big circle. And again, this curve follows the curve of that little crunch of the body. Yet again, spoiler alert, another big circle, another tube, and you guessed it, right? Another big circle. Still again, following this slight curvature of the hip, of the body. And this last one we did, you guessed it, class, a circle, a tube, and another circle. And this one we noted too that these circles are a little more ovally to really accentuate the fact that this woman is longer, right? She's a taller, lankier individual. And so all of these, so even if we get rid of this, right, you kind of you still remember the look of these shapes just by seeing these little curves. And what's interesting then is, again, the main takeaway that I found, these, it's where that tube intersects the circles to cause a little bit of a break that causes our minds to see that as like an intrigue point, right? There's a crunch to it. And with that crunch, it helps really accentuate those thinner waist. And my favorite thing from him today that we found, if we get rid of this, if we look at again, let's change to actually a deeper red. The lat complements the breast. Every way he's done it, almost every single time, we have the lat shape complement the breast. It doesn't need to overhang like a gargantuan thing, right? You need to sell the shape with the surrounding shapes. He's selling that curvature of the breast with the curvature of that line of the lat. And that is genius. David Liu, if you are listening, genius. And I absolutely love the way you do that. Obviously, like we said, in art, there's no steadfast. It's not like every time you have to do that. However, it makes sense. It looks good, right? And you at least have that as a general rule of thumb. You don't have to do it every time, but keeping it in mind, folding it into your understanding. But yeah, it is 1:30, and I think I'm, doing well on time. I'm definitely hungry. I gotta go eat my protein and get moving along. I did forget it's Friday, so I hope everyone's got a fun weekend ahead, a relaxing weekend, a productive weekend, whatever kind of weekend you want. I hope you've got it in store. And if you don't, hopefully next weekend or the weekend after or something like that. But yeah, I think today was a good day breaking down David's style, uh understanding the shapes, and hopefully you guys learned something. If not, hopefully you still enjoyed just chilling, hanging out. But hope you guys have a good weekend, and until Monday, be kind and kick butt.